And so this topic here that I'm covering is a warning because we live in a new world where anything you say can and will be used against you. And that's not when you're getting your Miranda rights read to you on the side of a road, hopefully. This is just the world we live in. And I am a free speech advocate. I really am. And so this is a very interesting story. But there is a difference between the freedom to say whatever you want. And let me be very clear. We're in a very interesting time in history, and the things that one can say can be unbelievably controversial and insensitive. And yet, I believe in your right to say whatever you want to say. I am a person of faith. I'm conservative. Whatever. And you could say anything and you could say anything to me. You are allowed, and I will fight for your right to offend the absolute snot out of me. I really will. You have every right to offend me. Now so that's free speech. It's protected under the First Amendment. Should be. But just because we're free to say whatever we want does not mean we are free from consequences. So you should be allowed to say it, but people can then react however they want to. I don't think anybody should take your right away. So let's enter in the story in the world right now. Hamas attacks Israel. Israel responds and is continuing to respond. Heinous attack by Hamas. And yet, a lot of people out there are saying, you know what? It's Israel's fault. The atrocities that they have put in place and they have performed, if you will, or allowed over the Palestinian people, they just couldn't take it anymore, and it's Israel's fault. They instigated all of this atrocity. And I'm not here to comment on all that. That's been commented on enough. But here is the issue. Well, you know what? I will comment on it because people are going to say, well, I'll tell you something right now. No matter where you stand on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and occupation and Israel's independence and who owns the land and who has right to land, wherever you stand on that, let me tell you something right now. And let me just say this. I am very educated on the issue. I understand. I've got a lot of friends who are on a different side of this issue as it relates to Israel's rights to the land and what they've done to the Palestinian people. I've got a lot of friends who are very educated on it. Talk to me about it. And there's a lot of evidence of, well, this is not fair and this is not cool and this is dispute. Let me say this. There's a difference between nations warring against each other and terroristic attacks upon innocent people. So what Hamas did is outrageously wrong. And anybody who disagrees with that, you need to check yourself. Women and children, off limits. Terrorism, off limits. So that's done there. Now, so this thing blows up. And so we have a lot of Ivy League schools that are very progressive, what they teach, what they allow. By the way, funded by Arab organizations. And so it's a pro-Palestinian or there is a very clear pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas even, positions that are being talked about on American campuses. And so Harvard and Columbia specifically, there were some protests on behalf of the Palestinian people. And U.S. law firm Davis Polk, one of the largest law firms in the country, announced in an internal email that it had rescinded letters of employment for 3 specific law students at Harvard and Columbia, and it was because they were tied to organizational statements about Israel. This is from the internal email by Neil Barr at the law firm of Davis Polk. These statements are simply contrary to our firm's values, and we thus concluded that rescinding these offers was appropriate in upholding our responsibility to provide a safe and inclusive work environment for all Davis Polk employees. A representative of Davis Polk pointed to a statement that was included in the email, and this is a public statement by Davis Polk Law Firm. The views expressed in certain of the statements signed by law school student organizations in recent days are in direct contravention of our firm's value system. For this reason, and to ensure we continue to maintain a supportive and inclusive work environment, the student leaders responsible for signing on to these statements are no longer welcome in our firm, and their offers of employment have been rescinded. Now, on this actual what happened, October 10th, the Harvard Crimson, one of the university's student-run newspapers, reported that more than 30 Harvard student groups signed on to a letter that said they hold Israel entirely responsible for all unfolding violence in this conflict. That's a pretty strong statement. Do these Harvard and Columbia and all other Ivy League students, do they have the right to take that position? Absolutely. They do. Is it crazy offensive to a lot of people? Yes. So I've seen a lot of my friends on the conservative side say, this shouldn't be allowed. You know, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. Like, if you want to sound off on any other social issue, my conservative friends, and you get canceled or threaten to get canceled and you go, that's not right, then you got to be okay with the right of some of these college students, misinformed as they are, as wrong as they are, on not just this issue, on a variety of issues, in my opinion. And they get to say what they want to say. But now here's where this gets tricky. Do I think it's okay for a law firm to say, you know what? You signed on to a statement that we find to be unbelievably offensive, and we employ Jewish people here, and we don't find that safe for our environment? Yeah, they also have that right to rescind that environment. So are they punishing free speech? Yeah. There's consequences to your free speech. There's consequences to my free speech. But see, we've gotten to a point in America, and it's spilling over into the workforce, where everybody wants free speech. You want to be able to say what you believe and say it with great fervor, but you don't want other people to be able to say what they think. And it's now causing tremendous divisiveness in the workplace. Well, let me just tell you something, college kids. You sign on to stuff like this, or you go on social media. By the way, let's just take it outside of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Let's take it out of that. Any other issue that's super hot button cultural issue, you take a stance on social media, your employer or your potential employer could see it and find it to be very offensive and decide to not hire you. Does that mean that you aren't allowed, or you don't have the right to say what you believe? No, it doesn't. It just means there's consequences. But what's happened is, with the advent of social media and everybody being able to say anything they want, however they want, when they want, and largely not feel consequences because, again, you're behind a keyboard. Oh, that Ken Coleman guy. People take shots at me all the time on Instagram because I dare say something that's common sense. Fine. I applaud them attacking me. Great, you're paying attention. I provoked you to think. Fan-freaking-tastic. Here's the deal. If somebody sees it and it ends up harming you, you understand there's now consequences. For years on social media, there wasn't a whole lot of consequence. We fire whatever message we want behind the safety of the keyboard and the monitor. But those days are over. What you say can and will be used against you. So I'm all for free speech, but I'm also for consequences.